Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into the life of Girish Chandra Ghosh. Imagine Bengal's equivalent of Shakespeare, really, an absolute giant of their theatrical world.
Yeah, a huge figure.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This celebrated playwright, a man who, well, literally shaped the cultural landscape of his time, was also wrestling with some profoundly deep existential questions and, shall we say, embracing the earthly pleasures with gusto. So we have this incredible artistic force, but in constant internal conflict.
And what's fascinating here is that very dichotomy. You know, a public icon, deeply immersed in the world through his art, yet simultaneously grappling with the most fundamental questions of existence.
Right.
And pursuing a lifestyle that seemed, well, quite at odds with traditional spiritual paths. This inherent tension is absolutely key to grasping the nuances of his journey.
Exactly. And for this deep dive, we've got a really insightful source, a biography titled Life of Sri Ramakrishna, and it dedicates an entire chapter to Girish. Now, for you, our listener, the always curious learner, our mission today is pretty straightforward. We're not going to overwhelm you with every single detail, promise.
No, definitely not.
Our goal is to understand the core of Girish's internal struggles, his initial deep skepticism towards spirituality, and the utterly pivotal relationship that completely transformed his perspective. Get ready for some surprising turns.
Oh, definitely.
And the story of how a seemingly unlikely individual was profoundly changed by a spiritual figure.
And if we, connect this to the broader societal context of the time, Bengal during Girish's life was a truly dynamic place. Western education had made its impact, bringing with it a significant rise in materialism.
Right.
There was this tendency maybe to view anything Western as superior, as the new standard. And sadly, this led some to adopt the less admirable aspects of Western culture, perhaps more readily than the more enriching ones. Simultaneously, traditional Hinduism was being questioned, with many pointing out perceived hypocrisy within the established religious institutions. And the Brahmo Samaj, that significant social and religious reform movement, known for its monotheistic principles and critique of traditional practices, they also played a role in this whole intellectual ferment.
So picture Girish right in the middle of all this upheaval, intellectual and social, his response. Well, he threw himself into those Western pleasures, especially drinking.
Seems like it.
The old religious beliefs. He just wasn't convinced. But underneath it all, this fundamental question kept nagging at him. Does God exist? And if he does, how in the world do I actually connect with him?
And this raises such an important point about belief, doesn't it? And how our surroundings influence us. Girish saw the readily available satisfactions of the material world.
Yeah, the easy stuff.
Exactly. And contrasted them with what seemed like the immense difficulty of achieving spiritual fulfillment. His rather cynical conclusion that materialism was the wiser path because it at least offered tangible enjoyment reflects a very common human struggle. When abstract spiritual ideas feel distant compared to immediate sensory gratification.
And the fact that he lived, according to this conclusion, for 14 years. That really underscores the depth of his conviction at the time.
14 years. That's a significant portion of a life lived under that particular philosophy.
But, as the biography recounts, then came a series of reverses that truly shook his world and compelled him, really forced him, to seek answers beyond the bottom of a glass.
Yeah, and that turning point is often the catalyst for significant personal growth, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's frequently during times of crisis or profound change that individuals become more receptive to exploring alternative viewpoints and seeking comfort beyond their established belief systems. Girish's challenges created a void, a need for solutions that his materialist worldview just couldn't address.
So where does he turn first? He thinks of Lord Shiva of Taraxwar, a deity specifically known for healing. And his reasoning is so relatable, I'm completely surrounded by dangers. Maybe this powerful being can actually help me.
Makes sense.
And you know what? He tries to surrender to this idea, and it seems to work. The immediate threats recede. Suddenly, Girish is convinced. Okay, there's definitely something to this God thing. God is real.
And that personal experience, like a seemingly answered prayer, it can be an incredibly powerful foundation for faith.
Absolutely.
It shifts the concept of divine power from something abstract to a tangible reality in one's life. However, what's particularly interesting is that his internal questioning didn't stop there.
No.
He might have been relieved from immediate danger, but the larger questions about life's purpose and the correct spiritual path, they still lingered.
Exactly. He starts grappling with this whole concept of a guru, a spiritual teacher. People say you need a guru to show you the way, he thinks. But I've directly experienced the power of Taraknath. Can't I just connect through chanting his name?
It's a fascinating internal debate, isn't it? Whether a spiritual guide is even necessary.
Totally. He even reasons that if the guru is ultimately supposed to be God manifest, how can he, an imperfect human, be expected to bow down to another imperfect human? It's quite a thought.
And this reflects a very understandable tension, I think, between individual spiritual experience and the traditionally emphasized importance of a spiritual guide. Girish's hesitation, it stems from a sense of personal autonomy, maybe a questioning of hierarchical authority, a sentiment that resonates even today. His resolution to pray to Taraknath, to act as his guru if needed, and to regularly invoke his name represents a kind of middle ground, right? Acknowledging the tradition while still maintaining his independence.
Okay, so he's taken this step, dipped his toe into the spiritual waters, so to speak. Then we have his initial encounters with Sri Ramakrishna. He reads about this Paramahamsa, a spiritual title signifying a high level of realization at Dakshineswar in the Indian mirror.
Right.
But his immediate reaction is one of skepticism because the Brahmos, that reformed Hindu movement we mentioned earlier that he wasn't entirely convinced by, that were also showing interest. He kind of writes the whole thing off.
Well, his skepticism is perfectly understandable given his background and the prevailing social climate. He was likely wary of anything that might appear to be just another form of rigid dogma or, hypocrisy.
True.
The Brahmo's interest probably colored his initial perception of Sri Ramakrishna, associating him with a group he already viewed with a degree of suspicion.
Then comes his first actual meeting with Sri Ramakrishna, and it's a complete letdown, like seriously disappointing for him.
Oh, really? How so?
He visits a neighbor's house where Sri Ramakrishna is staying. It's evening, the lamps are lit, but Sri Ramakrishna, in what sounds like a semi-conscious state of spiritual absorption or trance, what's often called samadhi, he doesn't even seem to notice the light. He actually asks if it's evening. Girish is utterly disgusted by this apparent absurdity and just leaves. You can just imagine Girish's reaction, this renowned figure he'd read about, and he's just asking if it's evening. It really highlights the clash of their worlds at that point.
Absolutely. That initial encounter really underscores the vast difference between Girish's worldly expectations and the reality of Sri Ramakrishna's deeply spiritual state. Girish, with his logical, grounded mindset, interprets the master's profound absorption as mere foolishness. It's a stark contrast between two fundamentally different ways of experiencing reality.
So fast forward a few years, and Sri Ramakrishna visits the home of Balaram Bose. Girish is invited, and he's actually quite surprised. He had this preconceived notion that these highly revered spiritual figures were aloof, never engaging, never showing deference.
Right, sort of distant.
But Sri Ramakrishna is completely different. However, this visit is cut short when a friend rather abruptly pulls Girish away, showing a distinct lack of respect for Sri Ramakrishna.
Okay, so this second meeting provides another glimpse into Sri Ramakrishna's unconventional behavior, which starts to chip away at Girish's previously held beliefs.
Maybe just a little.
Even though the interaction is brief, the stark contrast between Girish's expectations of a spiritual leader and the master's actual demeanor likely planted a seed of curiosity, however small.
Then, the third meeting takes place at Girish's own Star Theater. The Chaitanya Leela play is being performed, and a devotee informs Girish that Sri Ramakrishna has come to watch.
On Girish's turf, so to speak.
Exactly. Girish, ever the generous host, offers him complimentary admission, even a box seat. But here's where it gets really interesting. Sri Ramakrishna doesn't just accept. He salutes Girish.
He salutes Girish.
Yes, and then he bows again. And again, Girish actually has to stop him before he continues. He's clearly taken aback by this profound level of humility coming from a spiritual figure.
Wow, that's unexpected.
It wasn't just a polite gesture, it was a deliberate dismantling, it seems, of Girish's preconceived ideas about spiritual leaders. It highlighted a form of power rooted in selflessness, a concept perhaps alien to Girish's ego at that time.
This repeated bowing is indeed a powerful and significant gesture. For someone like Girish, who himself admitted to having a certain degree of arrogance, experiencing such profound humility from a respected figure would have been deeply impactful, perhaps even a bit unsettling. It directly contradicted his prior notions of spiritual leaders as being distant and self-important.
Definitely. Now, around this time, Girish has an encounter with a Vaishnava painter. This painter claims that his chosen deity, his Ishtadevata, one's personal god, actually consumes the food he offers.
Okay.
But he emphasizes that this kind of divine favor is utterly impossible without the grace of a guru.
The guru again.
Exactly. And this statement, whether literally true or not, hits Girish with tremendous force. He locks himself in his room and weeps.
He weeps just from that statement.
Apparently so. That intense emotional reaction really underscores how deeply this question of the guru resonated within him, even if he hadn't consciously acknowledged it yet.
Yet that incident does appear to be a critical turning point. The painter's words seem to tap directly into Girish's underlying spiritual yearning and his earlier unresolved questions about the necessity and role of a guru.
Right.
The sheer intensity of his emotional response, isolating himself and weeping, strongly suggests a deep internal struggle and a growing awareness of his own spiritual needs.
Then, incredibly, just 3 days later, Sri Ramakrishna is walking past Girish's house and salutes him once more.
Again.
Girish feels this undeniable pull towards him, and then a message arrives. The master wishes for him to come to Balaram's house.
Okay, the plot thickens.
It's there that Girish finally poses the fundamental question. Who exactly is a guru?
And Sri Ramakrishna's response is, well, deceptively simple, yet incredibly profound.
Okay.
He is an intermediary. He facilitates the meeting of the devotee with God. This definition clarifies that the guru's role isn't to be God himself, but rather a guide who bridges the gap between the individual and the divine. And then the master delivers a bombshell. You already have your guru.
Boom. Girish, understandably, is taken aback. He then inquires about mantra, the sacred words or sounds.
Right.
And Sri Ramakrishna explains that it is essentially God's name, illustrating this with the well-known story of Kabir and his guru Ramananda. Even an unintentional utterance, a chance encounter with the sacred name, can function as a potent mantra.
That's a really fascinating perspective. It suggests that the efficacy of a mantra lies not necessarily in a formal initiation, but in the sincerity and receptivity of the individual.
It seems so.
The anecdote about Kabir beautifully illustrates this idea that the power of a mantra doesn't always depend on a formal initiation, but rather on the individual's devotion and openness. It also subtly addresses Girish's earlier reservations about the traditional guru-disciple relationship.
True. The conversation then shifts back to the theater, with Sri Ramakrishna expressing his desire to visit again. What follows is this almost humorous negotiation about the admission fee.
Oh yeah.
Girish initially offers free entry, then suggests a symbolic 8 annas, and Sri Ramakrishna firmly insists on paying a full rupee for a box seat.
He insists on paying full price.
Yes. It's a lighter moment in the narrative, but it also reveals Girish's initial joy and perhaps a lingering underlying resistance to fully accepting the need for a traditional guru. He even thinks to himself that only fools believe in needing a guru, especially since the Paramahamsa himself indicated that Girish already had one.
So he's interpreting it his own way.
Exactly. This reveals Girish's tendency to interpret things in a way that aligns with his own desires and perhaps justifies his continued pride.
Right, this moment indeed highlights Girish's inclination to interpret Sri Ramakrishna's words in a way that supports his own preconceived notions. He seizes upon the master's statement to rationalize his resistance to fully accepting a human guru. It's a clear indication that his pride was still a significant factor at this stage.
And that pride is indeed a major obstacle for Girish. He views the very act of accepting a human guru as a form of spiritual bondage. But then Sri Ramakrishna does something truly unexpected. He is the one who continues to bow to Girish.
Still bowing to him.
Yes. This utter lack of ego from the master begins to melt away Girish's inherent arrogance. The biography notes that Girish's proud head bent of itself.
Wow. The master's humility is a direct and powerful challenge to Girish's pride. It's a demonstration of spiritual authority that doesn't rely on dominance, but on profound selflessness. This silent communication often speaks volumes more than any spoken words.
Absolutely. There's another incredibly powerful moment that occurs in the theater green room. Girish is initially hesitant to even go and greet Sri Ramakrishna, thinking somewhat dismissively, can he manage to get down from the coach without my assistance?
A bit arrogant still.
Just a bit. But when he finally does see the master's serene and radiant face, he's overcome with remorse for his lack of hospitality. He spontaneously touches Sri Ramakrishna's feet.
A big step.
Huge.
Yeah.
And the master's gentle yet penetrating observation, there is still crookedness in your mind, and his simple yet profoundly impactful advice. Have faith.
Straight to the point.
Exactly. This encounter really highlights Girish's internal conflict. Despite his outward resistance, he's increasingly drawn to Sri Ramakrishna. The act of touching the master's feet is a subconscious acknowledgement of his growing spiritual respect.
Right. And the master's diagnosis and straightforward prescription, have faith, cut through all the complexities of Girish's intellectualizations and go straight to the heart of spiritual realization.
Now, despite not even receiving an invitation, Girish feels this incredibly intense longing to see Sri Ramakrishna at Ramchandra Dutt's house. He actually fights this urge, stopping several times on his way.
Really? He tries not to go.
Yeah, but that strange attraction, as the biography describes it, is just too strong to resist. He eventually goes.
That irresistible pull really demonstrates the growing and undeniable influence of Sri Ramakrishna on Girish. It's no longer just a matter of intellectual curiosity. It's a deep, emotional yearning for the master's very presence.
Definitely. And what he witnesses there is Sri Ramakrishna dancing and singing in this incredible state of spiritual fervor. Girish is so deeply moved that he weeps. Then Sri Ramakrishna enters samadhi, that deep spiritual trance we talked about, and the other devotees begin to reverently touch the dust from his feet. Girish wants to do the same, but his pride still holds him back.
Still that pride.
Still there. And then, in this truly extraordinary moment, almost as if Sri Ramakrishna senses Girish's internal struggle, he comes out of samadhi, dances directly towards him, and then enters samadhi again, right there in front of Girish.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Incredibly.
Yeah.
This is a profoundly personal and deeply significant interaction. It's as if Sri Ramakrishna is directly addressing Girish's inner resistance, offering a tangible and undeniable demonstration of his profound spiritual state, and implicitly inviting Girish to finally surrender. The biography recounts Girish's repeated questioning about how to remove his crookedness.
He keeps asking.
Yeah, and Sri Ramakrishna's consistent and reassuring affirmative answer, which further underscores the master's deep understanding of Girish's core challenges.
Yeah, it's like the master knew exactly what Girish needed in that moment. A direct, undeniable experience.
Later on, Girish visits Dakshinswar, and Sri Ramakrishna mentions that he had literally just been speaking about him.
Oh, that's synchronicity.
Right. Girish, in his typically direct and perhaps somewhat impetuous manner, interrupts, stating that he doesn't need any more instructions after all. He's written plenty of plays himself. What he truly desires is tangible help.
Bold move.
Very. And surprisingly, the master is actually pleased by this bluntness. He then quotes a Sanskrit verse emphasizing the necessity of faith, regardless of one's circumstances or location.
Interesting reaction from the master.
It leads Girish to further question the true nature of this man, this individual who commands such deep reverence. And when he directly asks Sri Ramakrishna who he really is, the reply is wonderfully enigmatic. Some say that I am Ram Prasad, others that I am Raja Ramakrishna. I simply live here.
Not exactly a straightforward answer.
Not at all. When Girish then inquires if he should continue with his theatrical work, Sri Ramakrishna simply responds, "Why, yes," which gives Girish this profound sense that his life, his passions are not inherently wrong or obstacles to spiritual growth.
That's huge, that acceptance.
It really is. This exchange highlights the unique and unconventional dynamic between them. Girish's directness, bordering on rudeness, doesn't seem to offend Sri Ramakrishna.
No, he seems to appreciate his underlying sincerity. The master's enigmatic response about his identity encourages Girish to look beyond superficial labels and experience the divine directly. And the affirmation of Girish's existing work is such a crucial aspect of Sri Ramakrishna's inclusive and accepting approach.
From this point onwards, Girish becomes a deeply devoted follower of Sri Ramakrishna. The master frequently praises the incredible depth of Girish's faith, which seems to gradually transform some of his more challenging personality traits.
So the transformation starts to really take hold.
It seems so. The relationship is described as wonderful, with Sri Ramakrishna displaying immense patience and understanding for Girish's flaws, always recognizing his inherent inner sincerity.
That tolerance, it really underscores the importance of inner transformation over mere outward perfection. He clearly saw Girish's immense spiritual potential and focused on nurturing his burgeoning faith, understanding that genuine and lasting change originates from within.
Yeah. Now, it's important to acknowledge that Girish still grappled with his addiction to drinking. There's a rather shocking incident recounted where, under the influence of alcohol, he actually verbally abuses Sri Ramakrishna in front of his other devotees.
Wow, really? He abused him?
Yes. However, the biography sheds light on the underlying motivation for this outburst. Girish desperately yearned for a closer, almost familial bond with the master. He even harbored the desire for Sri Ramakrishna to be like a son to him, believing this would somehow foster his own devotion.
This is the unusual desire.
It is. But Sri Ramakrishna firmly rejected this, declaring unequivocally, "I shall be your guru, your Ishta, your chosen deity or personal god." This firm rejection is what triggers Girish's drunken and regrettable outburst.
I see. This is a powerful illustration of the intensity of Girish's desire for connection with the master, albeit expressed in a deeply flawed and inappropriate manner. His attempt to redefine their spiritual relationship reveals the profound emotional investment he had, and his ongoing struggle to reconcile his ingrained worldly desires with his growing spiritual aspirations. Sri Ramakrishna's unwavering stance clearly establishes the necessary boundaries of their unique guru-disciple relationship.
Later, when Ramachandra Dutt informs Sri Ramakrishna about Girish's deeply inappropriate behavior, even suggesting that Girish can only give what he has, comparing him somewhat starkly to a snake that can only offer venom.
Ouch. Harsh comparison.
Very. But Sri Ramakrishna is profoundly moved and immediately expresses his desire to go and see Girish, regardless of the late hour or the intense heat.
He wants to go see him after being abused.
Immediately. This ultimately leads to a tearful reconciliation between them, and a significant step in Girish's journey towards complete self-surrender.
That incident truly underscores Sri Ramakrishna's boundless compassion and profound understanding. He doesn't respond to Girish's transgression with condemnation, but instead with an outpouring of love and an immediate desire to repair their bond.
Incredible, isn't it?
Ramachandra's insightful, though perhaps harsh, analogy helps to contextualize Girish's actions, further highlighting the extraordinary depth of the master's tolerance.
Even when another devotee voices a complaint about Girish's continued drinking, Sri Ramakrishna confidently replies, "Why do you trouble your head about him? He who has taken charge of him will look after him. Drinking will not ultimately affect him."
Wow. Such confidence.
It's this incredible and unwavering faith he possesses in Girish's ultimate spiritual transformation.
Absolutely. This statement truly reflects Sri Ramakrishna's deep spiritual insight. He is able to see beyond Girish's current struggles and imperfections to his inherent spiritual potential and the transformative power of divine grace that is actively working within him. It's a powerful testament to his unwavering belief in the ultimate triumph of devotion.
The biography astutely points out that Sri Ramakrishna understood that mere words and admonishments would likely not be enough to break Girish's deeply ingrained habits.
Right, lecturing probably wouldn't work.
Exactly. It was the profound and silent influence of his love that ultimately worked miracles. There's a poignant story about Girish experiencing a relapse, visiting an actress, indulging in heavy drinking, and then returning to Sri Ramakrishna with a flask of wine completely filled with remorse for his actions.
He brought wine to the master.
Yes. And the master, in a seemingly paradoxical move, actually allows him to drink, knowing deep down that this was a temporary setback and wouldn't last.
He lets him drink it. There.
Yes. It vividly illustrates Sri Ramakrishna's highly unconventional methods of spiritual guidance. He doesn't resort to harsh reprimands or strict punishments, but instead meets Girish exactly where he is, trusting implicitly in the eventual and complete triumph of his inner spiritual transformation.
It's fascinating. Allowing him to drink in that moment might have been a subtle way of allowing Girish to fully confront the consequences of his own choices and experience the diminishing allure of his addiction, perhaps.
Could be. Eventually, Sri Ramakrishna gently asks Girish to try and remember God at specific times during the day.
Okay, so basic practice.
It's simple, right? But Girish, with his notoriously chaotic and irregular lifestyle, actually resists even the seemingly simple request. He honestly can't promise any sense of regularity.
Even just remembering God.
Apparently not consistently. The master, with incredible patience and understanding, then makes gradual concessions. But Girish is still unwilling to commit to even remembering God before his meals and at bedtime.
Wow, he really resisted structure.
Completely. Girish's continued resistance truly highlights the immense difficulty of breaking long-established habits and the ongoing internal conflict he was experiencing between his deeply ingrained worldly life and his growing spiritual aspirations.
Yeah, his reluctance to adhere to even basic spiritual disciplines clearly reflects his fiercely independent nature, doesn't it?
Definitely. And then comes this absolutely pivotal moment in their relationship. Sri Ramakrishna, in what is described as an exalted mood, declares with immense spiritual power and authority, "All right, give me your power of attorney."
His power of attorney, what does that mean?
From this moment forward, I assume complete responsibility for you. You need not do anything further.
Whoa. He's taking it all on.
That's what he says. Girish experiences this incredible wave of profound relief, a deep sense of immediate salvation, not fully realizing at that exact moment the complete and unconditional surrender he has just made.
Wow. That act of granting power of attorney is a truly powerful metaphor for complete and utter surrender. It signifies Girish relinquishing all vestiges of personal control and placing his entire spiritual well-being and destiny into the loving and capable hands of his guru. The description of the master being in an exalted mood strongly underscores the profound significance of this particular moment for Girish's transformative spiritual journey.
From that moment onward, Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual guidance for Girish shifts dramatically. The emphasis now is entirely on the complete and utter relinquishing of personal will and ego.
So the training changes focus.
Completely.
Yeah.
The biography even provides an example of the master gently correcting Girish's often dogmatic statements, patiently teaching him to always add the caveat, God willing.
Teaching him humility in speech too.
Exactly. The biography ultimately concludes that Girish's unwavering and constant focus on Sri Ramakrishna, born directly from this total and absolute surrender, is what ultimately transformed his previously turbulent spirit into one of profound peace and devotion.
That final stage of Girish's transformation truly emphasizes the paramount importance of letting go of one's ego and fully embracing the divine will. The remarkable transformation of his previously turbulent spirit through this unwavering devotion and complete surrender powerfully underscores the profound and lasting impact of his extraordinary relationship with Sri Ramakrishna.
So, for you, the learner, the very essence of Girish Chandra Ghosh's remarkable journey is this incredible transformation. From a deeply ingrained skeptic, grappling with the allure of materialism and questioning traditional religious beliefs,
Where he started.
to a profoundly devoted disciple, all thanks to his unique and extraordinary connection with Sri Ramakrishna. And perhaps the most surprising aspect of this entire story is that it wasn't achieved through intellectual debates or adherence to rigid rules.
No, not at all.
But rather through the transformative power of a truly unique personality and an experience of unconditional love and acceptance. That's a real aha moment, isn't it?
It really is. If we connect this back to your desire for insightful learning, Girish's story beautifully illustrates that profound understanding can sometimes emerge not solely through the application of pure logic and reason, but also through the transformative influence of deep human connection and deeply personal experiences. It challenges the often held notion that all valuable knowledge is purely intellectual and detached.
It really makes you reflect, doesn't it? How often in our own lives do profound human connections and unexpected influences subtly yet powerfully shape our perspectives and ultimately alter our chosen paths?
Yeah.
And is it truly possible that genuine understanding sometimes arises not through endless intellectual debate and analysis, but through a form of personal surrender, of opening ourselves up to possibilities that lie beyond our current limited understanding?
That raises a truly important question for you to contemplate. What does it genuinely mean to surrender? And could the act of relinquishing control in certain aspects of our lives actually lead to a deeper and more authentic form of inner freedom or profound personal transformation?
Something to think about.
Perhaps further exploring the rich lives and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna and his diverse group of disciples might offer even greater insights into this truly fascinating and timeless dynamic.
I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.